Welcome back. This time we're looking at the enemy color pairs in Pauper Cube. Keep in mind this is just my top 3 selections for each color pair in no particular order. Starting off the list with Orzhov and Kingpin's Pet from Gatecrash. 1 white and black casting cost, flying, extort, and it's a 2/2. I do think Kingpin's Pet can work in any Orzhov deck, but I do think it excels in punching through those last points of damage in an aggressive shell. My next pick for Orzhov, Blind Hunter, originally from Guild Pact. 2 white and black casting cost, 2/2 flying, haunt. When Blind Hunter comes into play or the creature it haunts is put into a graveyard, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Essentially, this is going to drain your opponent of 2 life when it comes into play and when it leaves play. Now, it takes a little bit more work to get the leaves play effect, but usually you're not going to have a problem getting it in an Orzhov deck. This is a pretty efficient body for this cost and interacts well with blink effects. However, it doesn't interact well with recursion effects because it doesn't actually end up in your graveyard. My last pick here, Pillory of the Sleepless, along with Blind Hunter from Guild Pact. Costs 1 in white and black to cast. It's an enchant creature. An enchanted creature cannot attack or block. Enchanted creature has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. So this is a Pacifism and Curse of the Pierced Heart combo. I'm a big fan of this card because it's removal, and I always love removal, and of course this deals with Guardian of the Guild Pact, which is important for gold removal. Also, this gets in the last few points when you need it to. Moving on to Boros, my first pick, Rally the Peasants, originally from Innistrad, 2 in white, instant. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, flashback 2 in red. This is basically a double Trumpet Blast and index that can actually support this with a lot of bodies. You can deal a ton of damage with Rally the Peasants. Rally the Peasants is really only good in one sort of deck, and in that deck it's very good. Another disenchant effect here, arguably the best in the format, Orim's Thunder from Apocalypse, 2 in white casting cost, kicker red. Destroy target artifact or enchantment if you pay the kicker cost. Orim's Thunder deals damage equal to that artifact or enchantment's converted mana cost to target creature. I may rate disenchant effects higher than a lot of people do, but I think it's very important to have answers to early signets and early equipment. And usually there are bodies like Porcelain Legionnaire that also die to the disenchant. It's a good answer to pacifism effects. You can ambush your opponent's attacker. I believe most Pauper Cubes will have enough targets that you can main deck a disenchant or 2, and I think Orim's Thunder is arguably the best one in the format, next to Dismantling Blow. My last card for Boros, Goblin Legionnaire from Apocalypse, red and white casting cost, 2/2. Red, sacrifice Goblin Legionnaire. Goblin Legionnaire deals 2 damage to target creature or player. White, sacrifice Goblin Legionnaire, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. Now, Boros has a few other 2-drops and other creatures in general that are on par with Goblin Legionnaire, but this is definitely my pick for the 3rd best card in Boros. It's a 2-mana 2/2, so it's, a little bit below rate, especially with a hard casting cost like this. But you can use it as removal, and you can use it to protect a different creature. This card offers a lot of flexibility on a 2/2 beater body, and while none of the effects are as powerful as they could be for the mana you're spending, it is a lot of options and high utility. Beginning is it with our first split card, Fire Ice. Fire, an instant, deal 2 damage, divided as you choose among any number of target creatures or players, and Ice, 1 in blue, instant, tap target permanent, draw a card. Now both of these cards are fine on their own, Fire being very good, Ice being decent. But put them together in an Izzet deck, and it's one of the best cards in the cube in my opinion. The fact that you can 2 for 1 your token playing opponent, or ice down your green ramp guy when he actually plays his 5-drop. The flexibility is huge with this card. My next pick for Izzet, Frostbearing Weird. 2 blue and red hybrid mana. It's a 1/4. You can pay blue and red hybrid. Frostbearing Weird gets +1/-1 until end of turn. Now, if you're playing this in a control deck, a 2-mana 1/4 actually blocks pretty well. The fact that it can actually be used as a mediocre win con later in the game is great. It also, importantly, deals with Guardian of the Guild Pact. I just think it's a very, very solid card for just 2 mana. My final card for the Is It section, another flexible removal spell, Jilt from Apocalypse, 1 in blue casting cost. It's an instant, kicker 1 in red. Return target creature to its owner's hand. If you paid the kicker cost, Jilt deals 2 damage to another target creature. So this is essentially a 2-drop unsummon with an added flexibility of another 2-drop shock. Now, spending 4 mana on those cards, that's not impressing anybody. This is arguably better than Fire Ice. I don't necessarily think that I agree with that. However, the argument could be made. This can protect your own creature, buy you some tempo, 2 for 1 your opponent if you have the mana to cast it. If I can cast both halves of Jilt, I always want it in my deck, whether that be a tempo deck or a control deck. Starting off the Simic section with Snake Form from Eventide, 2 and then a green and blue hybrid mana. It's an instant. Target creature loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1 green snake until end of turn, draw a card. So this is basically one of the best removal spells you're going to have in green and blue. It takes a little bit more work to turn this into a removal spell because you need to have a body that can block the creature or a burn spell or whatever. But giving respectable removal to these colors and having it being flexible that it can be played in either color, not necessarily requiring both, and replacing itself is enough for me to put it on the list. It also does deal with Guardian of the Guild Pact, albeit in a roundabout manner. My next card for Simic, Coiling Oracle from Dissension. It's green and blue 2-drop, it's a 1/1. When Coiling Oracle comes into play, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into play, otherwise put it into your hand. There are a lot of cards in green and blue that have a cantrip effect like this, and you could also argue, does it deserve a guild spot given that context? For me it does, because I do think this is the best effect, because it can ramp you if you actually get the land. It doesn't just go to your hand. My other pick for 2-drop in Simic, Shamble Shark from Gatecrash. It's green and blue, 2/1, flash, evolve. Now I think I probably overrate this compared to what a lot of people do, but it's very flexible. You can play this as a wannabe Ambush Viper in mid-range control decks, and you can play it in more of a tempo deck. It's almost certainly going to be at least a 3/2 for 2, and that's on rate for Pauper. But the fact that it can be bigger and actually function as bad removal is good enough to earn it a spot in my book. Starting the Golgari section off of Consume Strength from Apocalypse. Costs 1 black and green. Instant, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and another target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. This is similar in effect to Agony of Warp in that it can function as a combat trick plus removal combo. The biggest problem here is it does not deal with Guardian of the Guild Pact. We've had a decent amount of power creep in Magic in the last few years, and this card is not quite as impressive as it used to be. I do still think it's one of the best cards in Golgari. A lot of that because the guild doesn't really offer a lot of great cards beyond the top 3 or 4. My next pick, Putrid Leech from Alara Reborn. Green and black 2-drop, 2/2, pay 2 life. Putrid Leech gets +2/+2 until end of turn, plays this ability only once each turn. Now this card can put the beat down on your opponent really quickly. It isn't as simple as just fire and forget, pay 2 life, make it big every turn. Your opponent can always respond with a shock effect. Sometimes it's a better play to just leave it as a 2/2 and threaten the ability to pump this card. As a 2-drop, there's not a lot that can block this early in Pauper Cube, so this can put your opponent behind very, very quickly. The last card I want to mention for Golgari is Ringclaw Trowel from Eventide. It's 2 and a green and black hybrid. It's a 2/2 with Wither and Persist. This card pretty much makes any green or black deck that I play. It's never super impressive, but it's always okay. It can wither down bigger creatures, it interacts well with equipment and sacrifice effects. It's just always an okay card, and it's so flexible that I love having it in my Golgari section. That concludes the multicolor section for Pauper Cube. I find myself always anticipating multicolor and artifact focused sets more than the regular sets because Pauper Cube can always use more gas in those departments. Hope you enjoyed the list and have a good one.